Good afternoon, everyone. According to that gentleman or lady called U.S. Sailor, it is now 2:30, and I will call our meeting to order for May the 21st, our second meeting for the month of May. And it is customary for us to begin our meetings with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance to the flag when we're in this room. When we do the prayer, I'm going to call on Commissioner Combs to have that for us. You're welcome to join us in the prayer. You're welcome to use the time to have your own prayer, or you're welcome to just have it as a moment of silence, whichever you so choose. Commissioner Combs?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for all the many blessings, Lord. Forgive us when we take you so much for granted, Lord, and not recognizing what you do for us each and every day and sustaining our lives. Lord, just pray now for all those of the Citizens Academy that has taken so much interest in the operation of your county government, Lord, here, that they have come and they're graduating today, Lord, and we thank you so much for them. Lord, just pray that everything we do and say during this meeting, Lord, is for the best interest of Nash County and its citizens, and it will be pleasing in your sight. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank y'all. We are now on item 3 on our agenda, and it is a presentation by Ms. Patsy McGee for the Citizens Academy for 2017-2018. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. The 2018 Nash County Citizens Academy is completed. Nash County Government Works met on Thursdays from 5:30 to 8:30-ish from February 1st through May 3rd. The 10 sessions included presenters, department heads, and supervisors from almost all areas of Nash County government, plus leaders from some outside agencies for which the county has a significant funding role, such as Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools, Nash Community College, Carolinas Gateway Partnership, and Nash County Tourism. In the past 10 years, we have graduated from Citizens Academy 225 local leaders, many of whom have since served on various committees, commissions, and appointed boards in Nash County. At this point, each participant now has a 3-inch notebook filled with information about a wide variety of county services, plus contact information for departments that implement those county programs, so that they may continue to be engaged in the areas of interest to them. Would the chairman and the county manager join me at this time? First, I want to thank those who have worked often behind the scenes to ensure the success of the series of classes. The first certificate is for Ms. Hattie Cooper. Ms. Cooper has volunteered with us since completing the Citizens Academy herself in 2014. Thank you, Ms. Hattie, for your dedicated service to the civic education of the people of Nash County.
Thank you.
Nola Roberts. Nola wears a number of hats around the county, and she has worked tirelessly on the details related to preparing for and following up from each of the 10 sessions and graduation. Her hard work and dedication have made the 2018 Citizens Academy work smoothly. I can never thank Nola enough for her service to the people of Nash County. In addition, we're very pleased to introduce to the commissioners again our Golden Leaf intern, Craig Robinson, who has helped a great deal in the past couple of weeks in preparing for Citizens Academy graduation. Thank you very much, Craig. At this time, it's my privilege to propose that the Board of Commissioners award graduation certificates to the 2018 Citizens Academy participants. I'll share with you a little about each participant as you present the certificates. Betty Bissett. Betty Bissett is retired from Carolina Physical Therapy and is a lifetime resident of Nash County. Christine Bullock. Christine Bullock works at the City of Rocky Mount as an athletic secretary and has two sisters, Janice and Annette, who are in this class. Evelyn Klein.
Congratulations.
Evelyn Klein is a member of Inglewood United Methodist Church and volunteers at Faith Christian Ministries. She had 100% attendance at all 10 sessions. Rick Klein. Rick Klein is a retired restaurant manager and is married to his classmate Evelyn. He also had 100% attendance at all 10 sessions. Richard Cobb. Richard is retired from Edward Jones Financial Advisors and is a lifetime resident of Nash County. LaTanya Davis. LaTanya graduated from Elizabeth City State University and works for Nash County Department of Social Services. She had 100% attendance at all 10 sessions and is joined today by her son, Christopher.
Stranger next.
Yeah.
Janice Evans, our own clerk to the board.
Yes.
Congratulations.
She has a little sister, Chris, and a big sister, Annette, in this class. Margaret Gay. Margaret moved to Nash County in the 1980s. She had 100% attendance at all 10 sessions.
Congratulations.
Gary Hodges. Gary is a pilot, photographer, and is a member of the Rocky Mount Rotary Club. We'd like to thank him for taking our class photo this year. Nelson Kent. Nelson was brought to Nash County by his employer, Pfizer, 3 years ago. Annette Lynch. Annette works at Family Medical Center of Rocky Mount and is sister to Chris and Janice. Wes Miles. Wes was a member of the union for the railroad and joined Citizens Academy after a friend of his completed the class in a prior year. Carolyn Minjian.
That was strange to do.
Congratulations.
Carolyn of Spring Hope is a Nash County employee who works in the finance department and enjoys spending time with her grandchildren. Sharon Outlaw.
Very strange to do.
Congratulations.
The wife of Commissioner Wayne Outlaw, she is a lifetime resident of Nash County who retired from Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools and is active on various committees at Inglewood Baptist Church. She had 100% attendance at all 10 sessions. Greg Ross. Greg does woodwork. He also volunteers in and teaches disaster relief with Inglewood United Methodist Church. Bruce Sledden. Bruce is retired from United Community Ministries. He had 100% attendance at all 10 sessions. Paula Strickland. Paula Strickland of Nashville has volunteered with Nashville Baptist Church for 40 years. Oh, hers is here. Sorry.
Let's start over again.
Yeah, start again.
Paula Strickland of Nashville has volunteered with Nashville Baptist Church for 40 years and is married to classmate Ross. Ross Strickland. Ross serves as chair of the Nashville Board of Adjustment and has volunteered almost 30 years with Boy Scout Troop 76. Joyce Winston. Joyce Winston of Nashville works with the NC Board of Nursing. Her job requires her to work across the state, but she calls Nash County home. Judy Womack. Judy Womack is a 27-year resident, serves on various committees of Nashville Baptist Church, volunteers with the American Legion, and is married to classmate Larry. She had 100% attendance at all 10 sessions. Larry Womack. Larry has served on the Nashville Board of Adjustment and is a member of the local VFW, American Legion, is a Mason, and is a deacon at Nashville Baptist Church. He also had 100% attendance at all 10 sessions. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay, or you can choose to leave if you'd like.
On behalf of the board again, greatly appreciate you giving your 10 weeks to us. Look forward to you helping us in the future on some of our boards. Thank you. All right, we're now on item number 4 on our agenda, which will be a presentation by Ken Mullen with the Patient and Family Advisory Board of Nash UNC Healthcare. Since I knew Kenneth in his younger years when we grew up in Willifordtown together, and he may not want me to tell what all I know about him, I'm going to ask Mr. Outlaw if he'll introduce Kenneth for us.
Thank you, Mr.
Welcome,
Chairman.
Kenneth. Thank
you. I'm not going to tell anything bad about him because I really honestly don't know anything bad about him. But Kenneth, it's really a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to introduce you today. Kenneth is a lifelong resident of Rocky Mount and a good friend to many, including myself. He retired from the City of Rocky Mount Fire Department after 32 years of service from 1974 to 2006, serving as chief for his last 8 years. He served as executive director of the North Carolina Association of Fire Chiefs 2007 to 2012. Professional awards include 1984 Rocky Mount JC Firefighter of the Year, 1985 North Carolina JC Firefighter of the Year, 2006 North Carolina Fire Chief of the Year. 2012, he was awarded the Order of the Longleaf Pine. 2017, North Carolina Association of Fire Chiefs Lifetime Achievement Award. Kenneth has been married for 44 years to Debbie. They have a daughter, Shannon, a son, Travis, and 2 grandchildren that I know they adore. Kenneth is a member of Inglewood Baptist Church, where he currently serves as vice chairman of the deacon board. Kenneth has previously served as chairman of that deacon board and as chairman of the church's finance committee I can tell you he is a very valued person in Inglewood Baptist Church. We appreciate all you do for that church, Kenneth. He also currently serves on the Nash County Board of Adjustments, which is a position that I was honored and proud to ask that he be appointed to. He was appointed unanimously by this board. Today, as chairman of the Nash UNC Healthcare Systems Patient and Family Care Advisory Council, Kenneth will be making a presentation on the state of emergency medicine in our community. I want to say one final thing about Kenneth, and I say this from the heart, Kenneth. He's a good man, but more importantly, he's a good Christian man. Kenneth, we welcome you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and Mr. Manager, Madam Clerk, and Mr. Durham, we appreciate the opportunity to be here today. With me here today is Amy Wenham. She is, I like to call her our partner in crime. She's our leader of our Patient and Family Care Council. We also have Crystal Hayden and Dorsey Tobias, and one other representative here with us today, so I'd like to welcome them here. And thank you most of all for allowing me the opportunity to come here. Some of you already heard this, so I appreciate you sitting through it a second time. As we begin our presentation, we do want to talk about the state of emergency medicine in our community. One thing I would point out that our council, our Patient and Family Council, is all voluntary. We have right now about 12 members. We would invite anybody in the audience today that if you'd like to serve on that council, we'd be happy to speak with you about that. But one of our primary concerns is the care of our patients and our families when they come to Nash UNC. One of the things you'll see in the presentation, if you look at this check mark, that's kind of like our seal of approval. That means we have reviewed it, we've approved it, possibly we have designed it, and it is to go out in the community. So if you see that particular check mark, you'll know that the Patient and Family Centered Care Council has reviewed it and approved it to go out to our patients and families. Let's talk about a little bit about the evolution of emergency medicine in our country. First of all, we have what we call emergency room. We refer to them as emergency rooms. They're actually emergency departments now. But in the beginning, it was only an accident room. It was somewhere where a hospital had something set aside that if a trauma patient came in, that's where that particular patient would go. It's interesting that it was staffed only with junior physicians throughout that entire process. And what I like to refer to it as is that it was a physician rotating on call. I like to refer to it as when I first went to the fire department, the rookie got all the bad jobs that nobody else wanted to do. And this is kind of how this was. The most junior physician got that rotating on-call assignment to the emergency room or the accident room. The key point here is that none of those providers were trained to provide emergency care. Most of the time they were cardiologists, pulmonologists, general surgeons. They might have been primary care physicians, is what we refer to them as now. But the key is they didn't have any training in emergency care at all. The other part of the ambulance service was provided by morticians primarily because they had the only vehicles you could lay a person down in. So we know how that's changed in our environment today. The key point here is that those providing that emergency medicine or that emergency care were not trained to provide emergency care. So that we've made leaps and bounds in that area now. The other evolution is it's a fairly new approach because it only started in 1961. Dr. James Mills started the first emergency medicine practice in Alexandria, Virginia. And Dr. Adam Crowley was a pioneer in emergency medicine, and he took lessons learned from the battlefield and actually placed those into emergency departments so that they could be used to increase the overall outcome of our patients as they came into our emergency department. The other interesting thing is that he developed what we refer to as the golden hour. If we can get a person to care, emergency medical care within that first hour, to have a greater chance of survival and recovery. And he just wanted to save lives of injured Americans. The first emergency resident was graduated in 1970 from the University of Cincinnati, so when we look at that date, we're only talking about 48 years, so it's a fairly new practice in the overall care of our patients. The evolution, the practice of general physicians started making house calls. When that declined, where did people go? They didn't have any choice but to go to hospitals. So it was surprising to us as we began to put this together. And one of the things that we always tell each time we presented this is that we put this together as a group because we recognize this is something in our community people had a lot of questions about, and there's a lot of conversation about it. The first presentation we did was, where's my doctor? Because when you go to the hospital, your doctor doesn't come anymore. It's a hospitalist that actually treats you if you're in the hospital. And we learned our community didn't know very much about that at all. So we prepared a presentation for that. Council then recognized that emergency care was the next thing that we needed to provide to the community. So this is the presentation that was developed for that. But in the 1960s, the reason it was developed was to train physicians in the practice of emergency medicine. Secondly, was to provide access to primary care. Now, that's a surprise because we don't normally think about our emergency departments being designed to do that, but that's one of the primary reasons they were designed, was to provide access to primary care since doctors no longer made house calls. The third thing was to treat the increasing number of uninsured patients. Now, that's kind of a shock. It was kind of a shock to us that was one of the reasons that emergency medicine actually began, was to treat uninsured patients. There's a statement, we couldn't find who made it, but it says both the presence and the absence of health insurance drives people to emergency departments, and we are privileged to serve both. We don't turn anybody away, as we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. The American Red Cross was basic first aid. We now know that we have EMT and paramedics that provide our primary care of training in the field. And then emergency rooms have become emergency departments with physicians and many other medical disciplines that actually take care of us, from nurses to nurse practitioners and PAs, specializing in the actual delivery of emergency services. So no longer is it just somebody's assigned there. It is actually people that are trained to provide that type of care. So the public has come to look upon the EDs as the community medical center where any man may come with any complaint at any hour of the day or night and expect prompt and courteous attention is due. Now, who said that and when? Dr. James Mills said that in 1961. So from the time it began, he looked at emergency departments as a place where anybody could come to receive treatment in the event that needed medical treatment. Now, what is an emergency? An emergency defined as a medical emergency is an acute injury or illness that poses an immediate risk to a person's life or long-term health. Now, I want you to look at that statement. There are several little phrases within that statement that we need to pay attention to as we continue in this presentation, as we learn more about emergency departments and the care they provide. One is it's an acute injury or illness. The second is it's immediate risk to a person's life or long-term health. Now, let's look at a layman's definition. A situation where a reasonably prudent person, and that would be all of us, most of us without medical training, would determine that immediate care is needed. Another term, immediate care. The council decided that we wanted to come up with our own definition, so this is what we settled in on. An unexpected, unexplainable, or worsening health condition that disrupts normal activity, causing discomfort, anxiety, or pain. I don't have any very little medical knowledge, but I know when I'm anxious, when I'm in pain, and when I know something's wrong with my body. So we decided we would use that definition for people like us who don't have medical training. Now then there's the me emergency. And we define that if me go to the emergency room, who has the greatest need for care? Me. And that's the way most of us feel. If we go to that emergency department, we feel like we're the most important person in the room. So we want to talk a little bit about what is a true emergency and what falls under that. So a true emergency, or level 1, as we're going to refer to it today, is an illness or injury that places a person's life or health in serious jeopardy, and treatment cannot be delayed. Now, keep that in mind as we go through this. Cannot be delayed, immediate risk to life as we continue on. Level 2 would be urgent care. We all know that term now, but it's a moderate or unforeseen condition that could require medical treatment within 24 hours. So look at the difference, the distinct difference in a level 1 and a level 2 emergency. True emergency versus urgent care. And then there's a non-urgent, 3, 4, or 5, which we would consider those types of conditions that could be treated by a general practitioner, that could delay, you could have a delay in several hours before you're actually seen by a provider. Now, I'll stop just a minute and talk about that word before I go any further. A provider, in the context of treating us in the emergency department, is a physician, a physician's assistant, a nurse practitioner. Any one of those three could be considered a provider. As we go a little further, we'll see why it's important to understand what that is. Key phrases and words within our definitions: a true emergency or level 1 is immediate care. That's a gunshot, heart attack, sepsis, victim, or stroke. So once those things are determined to be, that could be a possibility, those are considered, they're determined to be level 1 emergencies at that particular time. A level 2, as you remember our definition, within 24 hours, could be chest pains or belly pains that require more workup, more tests to be done, which is going to add to what our wait time, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Non-urgent, 3, 4, 5, do not increase the likelihood of an adverse outcome. That could be strains, pains that we don't have a reason for, colds, and those type things that people go to our emergency departments for. Now, based on a national study of insurance reports done in 2013, 71% of visits to the emergency department are not necessary. They don't fall into that level 1 or level 2 category. Now, we did some study when we were putting this together, and in 2016, 71% of Nash ED visits were deemed level 3, 4, or 5, which means they could have been seen by a primary care physician at some point if the person had waited. Now, the actual number was 70.69%. So we rounded it off to 71, and you can see it goes along with that national average. So when should I go to the emergency room? The point of this is not to keep people away from the emergency room, is to explain to people why sometimes they have to wait. And the point is that if your body's telling you that you need to be seen, then that's where you need to go, is to the emergency department. So by all means, if you feel like you need to go, we all should go. Now, when Nash opened, let's talk a little bit about Nash's ED. When it first opened in 1971, it was an 8-bed facility. In 1993, there was a new emergency care center open. It had 37 treatment rooms. And our latest ED, which was opened in 2014, is designed for a capacity of 85,000 patients a year. Now, that's an average of 232 a day, or almost 10 an hour is what it's designed to do. It's very important that as we see this, we understand that there are 11 hospitals within the Nash UNC system. And Nash UNC, at one time, could be considered the busiest of the 11. Now it's in the top 3 or 4. So we can see within our community, when you start looking at areas like Chapel Hill and those places, how busy our ED actually is, that people are coming here to get their treatment. Now, why are they being driven here? They're being driven here, on that average capacity that we have of 85,000, we look at Nash's ED as a high-volume ED. Now, in 2017, Nash treated 67,344 patients. That's 185 a day, which is almost 8 an hour. In 2017, or 2016, we treated 72,966 patients through our ED. And if we look at the population of Nash and Edgecombe County, that's about half of that those combined totals. So we have a lot of people coming to our ED for service. Now, our highest daily count that we've had so far since our new ED opened was 299 in one day. So we're talking about a tremendous amount of people that go through our emergency department here at Nash. 68 treatment rooms within our facility, 25 main rooms, 10 behavioral health service rooms. I'll go back to that in just a few minutes, so keep that in mind, that treat our mental health patients in our community, our substance abuse, suicides, and opioids. We hear a lot about that now. We have 10 pediatric rooms, 7 rated rooms, which means you've come in, you've been triaged, more tests are required, so you would be placed in one of those rooms. We have 6 clinical rooms where once it's determined you may be admitted to the hospital, You would go into that room as you wait to be admitted. We have 5 super track rooms, non-urgent in nature. You may come in with a cut finger. We can get those people in pretty quick, get them out. They don't require any additional testing. We have 5 of those rooms. And then we have 3 trauma and 2 high-intensity rooms, and those are rooms that you don't want to be part of. If you come in there, you're really in need of treatment. So let's talk about what happens when you come to the ED as a walk-in. When you come in, all of us has been through the security check and been through registration. Now, who can be treated at Nash's ED? Everybody, anybody that comes in. What we learned when we were putting this together was basically anybody who gets within 250 yards of our emergency department is considered a patient. So if you turn in Nash to Nash UNC at that stoplight, you're considered a patient if you're coming there for treatment. The other thing that we learned was that the federal government does not require, it's the only part of the health care system that the federal government requires people be treated without access to payment. So anybody that comes in there has to be treated. Now, what drives those people to the ED? First of all, uninsured people, people who, as I was telling the last group I spoke with, when I went to the doctor last week, what did he ask me for the first thing when I walked in? A copay. Some people just can't pay that. So where do they go? They go to our ED, and it is our ED that they go to for treatment. You will have, as soon as you walk into our registration desk, what you may not know is that recently we've put a registered nurse at that ED. So as you come in and begin to share your information, what's going on with you medically, you're being assessed at that particular point as soon as you get to that registration desk. Once that happens, then you would, of course, go to our triage area, and that's an interesting word because it means to sort. As you go into that triage area, your medical history is obtained, your current problem, your medications, your blood pressure, temperatures, height, and weight. And if I could boil this presentation down to one sentence, this is what it would be. The sickest are seen the quickest. Once all this information is gathered, then decisions are being made by one of those providers that I spoke about, either a physician, a PA, or a nurse practitioner, as to where you're at in that scale we talked about, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And once that's determined, you would be placed in that, not necessarily a line, but the sickest would be seen the quickest. Now, I want to talk about a myth just a minute. The myth is if I arrive by ambulance, I'll be treated quicker. That is a myth. The truth is that you will be triaged ahead of another patient, and one of the primary reasons for that is to see where you're at in that scale, and also to get those ambulances back on the road as quick as we possibly can. So that person that's brought in by ambulance is triaged pretty quick, and then we try to move those ambulances back out on the road where they're in for service as well. So once they come in, they're triaged ahead, but if they fall into that 3, 4, 5 category, they may be placed in a wheelchair and go back out to the waiting area. If they can't go in a wheelchair, they may lay on a gurney and be out in a hall somewhere, but they're not necessarily treated quicker than anybody else. If they're not that level 1 or 2, then they would fall into that category of 3, 4, and 5. So the emergency always says, but I was here before they were. That's what we do as humans. I was here before you were, so I should be treated first. Well, here's our statement about that. Emergency medicine is not about a place in line. It's about the severity of the problem, and it's not a restaurant where those people are served first. All right? So keep that in mind as we go through. Now, once you've been triaged, we looked at some national statistics. 2% of the people, once they've been triaged, needed to be seen in less than 1 minute. Those level 1 patients. The gunshots, heart attacks, sepsis, and stroke. 10% need to be seen in 1 to 14 minutes, that's level 2. And then 88% fall into that level 3, 4, and 5 category that some cases they could be seen by their primary care physician, but because I like to call it the man thing, we came in, we started feeling bad today on Monday, and I got a little worse off tomorrow, and I kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And on Saturday, what did I decide I needed to do? I decided to go to see the doctor. So I didn't have any choice but to go to the ED. So that's some of the things that what happens is people begin to look at that. Now, depending on the severity of your problem, once you've been triaged, there'll be one of two things that happen. You'll be asked to wait in the waiting room, and you see I have wait underlined here, and we have to have an acronym for everything nowadays. So we're going to use this as waiting always inflames tempers. So it makes no difference where we're at, the Walmart, whether we're at the Harris Teeter, wherever we may be, stoplights. We don't like to wait for anything. That, we don't find that there's any difference if you're waiting in a waiting room. The other thing is, the second thing that could happen is you're assigned to a room. Now, once you're assigned to that room, appropriate testing has to be done, and some of that may take several hours depending on what you're being tested for to find out what's going on with it. At that point, a diagnosis and a treatment is made, and one of three things happens. You're either admitted, you're transferred to another facility, or you're discharged, one of those three things. Now, there are two major times associated with ED visits. First of all is waiting in the waiting area. Now, this is an independent group called ER Weight Watchers that in 2017 said that patients spend an average of 60 minutes in the waiting room before being seen by a physician, PA, or FNP as reported. But remember what I told you earlier. We've made changes, and we continue to make those changes and reduce those times because we are putting a provider in the triage area. So when you come in, you're being assessed by that nurse at the registration desk. Once you go into triage, you're either seeing a nurse practitioner, a PA, physician's assistant, or a provider. So you're being seen pretty quick and evaluated as to what's going on, and we're continuing to make changes in that area to make it more effective. One of the things I would tell you about is we spent 3 hours a couple of weeks ago just on issues in the waiting area. What can we do to make it more effective? And they've allowed me to be part of that and other members of our council. And they've even allowed me to go into the emergency department and round, what they call it. So I've talked with patients, I've talked with family members, and then I do a report and I give to the ED director. So there are all kinds of things going on to try to reduce those times within our waiting area. The other thing is you could be asked to wait in the ED treatment room for a hospital bed. Once all those tests have been run, there's a decision made to admit you. What you may not understand is, once that decision is made, a hospitalist or doctor from over in the tower, the 5-story building, has to actually come over to the emergency department and then admit you to the hospital. So what's going on with that hospitalist while you're waiting to be admitted? He's seeing other patients, he's reading test results, he's working with patients and families. So there's going to be a wait time associated with that when you move in from being an admitted patient from the ED. So keep those things in mind if you go there. Other factors, day of the week, Monday or Tuesday is the busiest day. I always thought Friday and Saturday, but it's actually Monday and Tuesday. And who wants to go to the hospital on a weekend? You know, so again, we continue to wait. And the busiest times are between 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. pretty much every day, except those weekends. Now, where the patient presents during triage has impact on it. Remember that level 1 or 2 conditions are always going to be seen first, and they always require the longest time of treatment. So there's several factors involved with those level 1s and 2s that don't come into play with the 3, 4s, and 5s. Patients' surges for flu seasons, bus accident, anything that may happen, well, we're not expecting that. Test results may take more than 2 hours. Ambulance patients come in the back. Now, remember I said they'd be triaged first. They don't necessarily be treated, but if I'm in the waiting room, I can't see those ambulances coming in. And we've had as many as 44 ambulances in a day come in, not only from our own county, but from different counties as well. Boarded patients, once you're admitted to the hospital, those patients that are waiting to be seen by that hospital provider are then have to be evaluated. Rooms have to be cleaned. There are all kinds of things that have impact on that as well. Requirements for behavioral health. I asked you to remember that term a few minutes ago. When those behavioral health patients come in, they're assigned to a room in that particular unit. Many times, those patients require one-on-one care, which when they come in, for their own safety and for the safety of the hospital staff, they have to have a person assigned to them to stay directly in the room with them. So as they do that, what begins to happen with our staffing levels? They decrease. So that has a tremendous impact on our number of people as well. Just a little bit of information. 3 weeks ago today, I did one of these over at Momire. They had 101 patients come in 3 hours. That's a surge you cannot deal with, you cannot plan for. 14 of those patients were behavioral health. So we cannot prepare for those kinds of things. And when we have those surges, it really impacts the treatment we can have. Overall shortage in staffing, physicians and nurses, and then true emergencies take the most of our time. The reality is local patient and primary care physician ratio is 1775 to 1. So that means my Dr. Hood, who's now retired, he had 1,775 patients that he had to deal with. So if I call and need an appointment, when am I going to get one? Probably in about a week, right? So where am I going to go if I'm really sick, really feel bad? I'm going to the ED. I like the variation in these numbers, 7,300 to 43,000 shortage in by 2030. I think that's because they simply don't know. We have no clue what the shortages are going to be. 76 million baby boomers by 2030, go double the population of our elderly. Physicians and nurses shortages. Staffing is often blamed for the wait times, but it's overshadowed by conditions beyond our control. I want to make a point here about our staff. I've not worked with a single person there in my 5 years with this group that I've seen that doesn't have a passion for what they do. They want to provide good service, from our ED to our floor staff as well. They don't have any control over how many people are in that hospital. They don't have any control over the number of admissions we have, and they don't have any control over the boarded patients. So I've asked everybody we've done this for, is the next, if you have to go to the emergency department, which I pray you don't have to do, but if you do, I want you to think about if you've had to wait sometime, that the person coming there to treat you may have just come from a trauma case. They may have dealt with a death in a family. They may have dealt with several different things. And here I am, because I couldn't get into my primary care doctor, as soon as they walk in, what I want to do. I want to let them have it, right? I want you to think about that. I want all of us to think about that next time we have to go. Our expectation for immediate service is not expected to decrease. We are a microwave generation. We want it fast, hot, and now. We don't want to have to wait for it. And the insurance costs are not expected to decrease either. So the reality is, ask yourself this question. Am I better off waiting in the waiting room of a hospital than I am at home if I feel this way? Which one am I better off doing? I'm better off in that waiting room. So we need to go. Simply stated, the timeliness that they get to me is how quick other people have gone to the ED to be treated for primary care type issues. The reality is there are 3 Ps to reducing the rising costs of EDs. One is personal accountability. I have to have some responsibility for my own health. There are prevention programs that we offer through Nash UNC. And the prompt treatment at the onset of a problem is critical in order to overcome lifetime and long-term health consequences. I want you to age-old question, why can't they? We ask this every week at the hospital. We know you ask these questions as you come in. Why can't they do this? Why can't we're asking all those questions and making every effort we can to address those as well. The governor of Vermont said care shouldn't start in the emergency room, and that's very true. Now, what have we done? We've taken some steps to try to improve the wait times. That provider in triage is a big deal because he or she can assess those people fairly quickly. We're putting a provider in our waiting room to kind of round and see what's going on. Sepsis protocols, stroke protocols, and heart attack protocols have been put in place. You come in with those symptoms, you're immediately carried back until it's determined that you don't have one of those. Emergency medicine in the future, diversion modeling is a big deal now. We don't practice that at Nash UNC. One of the things that if you're in Wilson shopping and you have to get, an ambulance has to be called, you could end up in Nash. You could end up at Wake because some of those hospitals are practicing diversion modeling. Once they reach a certain capacity, they'll send patients to other hospitals. Nash is not participating in that at this point. Observation units, I call those the old ward units that some hospitals are putting in place where they can just log jam people in there and watch them in a big room. The other one is community and urgent care. We have a lot of those in our area. Freestanding emergency departments, they're private in nature, so very expensive. seeing those crop up in the nation. Online mobile technology is becoming a big deal. We've read about that a lot in the paper recently. If you have a smartphone, you can talk to a PA or a doctor at various hospitals. And then the thing I like and value is the senior department ED, is that they only see patients over 65, and they're beginning to crop up in our nation as well. The first one being in Silver Springs, Maryland. Bottom line is, understand that the person who presents with the acute injury or the most severe injury is going to be seen first, and they will be treated first. It's not about who arrives first. It's your ED. We want you to use it when you feel like you should. We encourage you to use it. Our staff members are here to provide excellent medical care. As I said, I hadn't met anybody yet that doesn't have a passion for what they do in that ED. So we want you to come there. We want to provide good treatment. Don't delay. All 68 rooms, including that waiting room, are part of our emergency department. So if you're there, you're in our system. It's best to be in an environment where you can be monitored throughout. We want you to speak up. It's important that you let us know what kind of treatment you've gotten. I will say one thing here. If you get bad treatment, there's no doubt you're going to tell us about it. Okay? If you get good treatment, we want you to tell us about that too. Especially the people that are treating you. We want you to let them know, because our tendency is, as a society, is to tell the bad things. So we want you to speak up and tell us about the good things that happen as well. The ED staff can't schedule true emergencies, so there's no way we can schedule what comes in our ED. And we want to hear from you about your care. Louis Pasteur said, one doesn't ask of one who suffered, what is your country or religion? One merely says, you suffer, this is enough for me, you belong to me, and I shall help you. Those 4 words are underlined because we feel at Nash UNC that if we could take those 4 words, that would be our mission statement in our ED, is that we shall help you if you come to our ED. So thanks so much for allowing us this time. We know your time is sensitive, and we're aware of that, but we appreciate it very much, the support that you give us and the service that you give our citizens of Nash County. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chief Mullins. Does any commissioner have any questions of Chief Mullins at this time?
I heard you mention Momire. Was that the Momire Ruerton
Yes, sir.
Club? Good. I'm glad you were able to get out there.
Yeah.
We're working on the other ones.
If you have any others that anybody you think would want to hear this, we'd certainly entertain that. We've got about 20 scheduled so far, so the community has really been receptive to us. So thank you so much.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. The next item on our agenda, which is agenda item 5, will be a public hearing on a bid proposal for Nash County Home Health. And prior to that, I'll ask Dr. Bill Hill if he'll come forward and brief us ever how he chooses to this afternoon. And we've been working on this particular item for a number of months, but Dr. Hill, just catch us up where we are, then I'll call for a public hearing, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you, sir. Good to be with you. As you know, this is a public hearing scheduled and by law of the 4 bid proposals that have been received for the possible purchase of Nash County Home Health. They've been duly advertised, and all 4 proposals in their entirety have been on display at the county manager's office, also by legal requirement. And the purpose of this public hearing is to hear from the public for or against the potential or possible sale of home health. I feel obligated to add there's no decision that will be requested today, or would it be legally required for today, or it would be prohibited today. So there would be no decision made today on the possible sale or purchase of home health.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. I do notice you have your board chair here today. If you would like to introduce him, he doesn't come to see us very often.
Dr. Johnson is here along with 4 other members from the board, and Dr. Mike Johnson, I don't know if you have a comment, but he is here as chairman. Vice chairman is also here. 3 other members from the
Dr. Johnson, you're welcome to speak if you wish, or you're certainly not required to, sir. I'm just glad to see you here today.
We're here for the public hearing of the board at our last meeting. Did not take any action, make any recommendations. We were simply here for information.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Any questions from board members prior to me calling for a public hearing? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this matter.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by like sign. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in a public hearing on the bid proposals for the potential sale of Nash County Home Health. And at this time, if there's any member in the audience that came today to speak in favor of this or against this, or has any questions about this, I would ask you to come forward to the podium. I'd ask you to state your name and address, and we'd certainly be delighted to hear from you. Anyone wish to speak at this time? Please come forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Adams. I come here representing myself and myself only. I am on the Combined Health and Human Services Board, so thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I do have a question. I don't come to speak for or against. I have a question. I know that this, if it is sold, there would be a lot of money involved, certainly a drop in the bucket with respect to the total overall county budget. But what would happen to that money? Would it go back into the county budget general fund? Would it go back into the budget for the Health and Human Services Board and be designated for health? And also, my second question is, we would possibly be looking at losing staff members. What is the county liability for any layoff issues? And perhaps, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you can answer that, or if Mr. Lamb needs to answer that, but thank you very much.
Sure. The first item, Mr. Adams, I can answer. The board has not made a decision at this time, not knowing for sure what we would be doing with any funds received from the sale of this. I think this board would be, knowing them, us knowing each other like we do, would be very sensitive to seeing it stay in some type of health-related category, but that has not been discussed by the board at this point in time, and certainly it will be discussed if we move forward with this. Mr. Lamb, do you want to address the second question, or Dr. Hill?
I will address this question. Thank you for being here. And you're asking the same questions that a lot of people have asked, including the commissioners. I do want you to know that for over a year, we've been looking at this issue, and one of the big concerns of Mr. Hill has been about the future of those employees. And right now, we've got 11 employees that are in home health, and we are committed to doing everything we can to integrate them in our existing employment base. So we have a lot of long-term employees that are among those 11, and so we're going to we plan on doing everything we can to place them elsewhere in county government. Now, there could be several of them that would want to go with the successful bidder, so they may have that option, but we will work with them individually. We're planning to meet with each employee individually, as is the high bidder that we have discussed this with. So we're very concerned about the employees, and we are going to do everything we can to place them.
if we move forward with it.
If we move forward, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Mr. Daniels, please come forward, state your name and address, sir. Good to see you.
My name is Bert Daniel. I live in the stand-up community out on Highway 97. I am a member of the Health Board, Consolidated Board, but I am here, want to make this clear, I'm here as an individual. The Health Board has allowed me some information that maybe the general public has not been aware of. I am a recipient of Nash County Home Health, and I fully believe, and I won't get into this story, that's for another day, I'm alive today because of the services of Nash County Home Health. Because I was not only a statistic, they were concerned about my care. And the flexibility of that care allowed me literally to be alive today. And I'm very thankful for that. And we have some members of the Home Health, and they're dedicated ladies. And I appreciate them so much, and we're so valuable. And we've just spent the last 30 minutes talking about health care and the volume of people that go through Nash General. And a lot of those coming out need home health care. And it is a prescription. And a prescription is an objective written order on a piece of paper. But that prescription requires care. And care comes in varying degrees. And it's not about, see, 10 patients, 15 minutes max, bang, 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 bottom line. Nash's philosophy is care to the ultimate. If it takes an hour or an hour and a half on a visit, that's what our people get. And that is a very, very important aspect of this. Now, I'm going to kind of bounce around, and what I want to do, or would like to do, is just stimulate your thinking as this process goes forward. I don't ask any answers today. I know this is not a two-way conversation, but I just like to throw out a few things to stimulate some thinking as you dig into this deeper. And that's what I hope you will do, dig into it deeper. Now, I've been involved as a layman in healthcare for about 25 years now, on the hospital board, on the health board, and presently on the consolidated board. And I remember about 25 years ago, at one of my very first meetings, there was a discussion about the General Assembly is going to revoke or disband the CON. That conversation comes up every year before the General Assembly, and it's ongoing. So to live under the threat of the CON, and it has value, and we need to cash in on that value right now before it's done away with, I think is just trying to read the crystal ball. So I'd like for you to dig into the history of the home health and how it got into the situation it is right now. And what I'm referring to is the investment. I'm going to borrow an old cliche. You can't keep doing the same things day in and day out and expect new and different and progressive results, okay? You got to invest. You got to invest in your people. You got to invest according to the competition. You can't just expect under 40 years ago that the customers are going to come to you or patients are going to come to you. You've got to be aggressive in your service if you're serious about your service. So to look at it from specifically the bottom line, which as I see it, and Mr. Chairman, tell me if I'm running out of time. I've only got just maybe a couple more minutes, if I'm allowed that.
Yes, sir, you are allowed it.
But as I see it sitting out here as a layman is that if you don't hear from the public, if you don't go dig into the archives, into the history, interview the employees, interview some of the past patients, then you're only going to be dealing with the financial aspect. Makes sense. Okay, home health is losing money. We got an opportunity to cash in, makes sense. I'm asking you to dig into it, go back 10 years maybe, dig into it when it was profitable, understand why it was profitable, the people that were involved in it, and then even more important than that, the service, and I'm not saying commercial services, they respond to the prescriptions that are written, and they provide the service. Home health is a little different. It's a jewel in the sky. It's an asset that cares about the patients. I'm alive to tell you about that. $2 million is a lot of money. I just got a feeling that if you decide to sell and $2 million comes into the coffers, a year from now, we'll scratch our head and say, where is that $2 million? What did it go to? What did it do? Oh, yeah, we promised we would help it out this and help it out that. But in a $100 million budget, 96, 98, what is it now? $2 million is
Find out.
a lot of money, sir.
We'll find out in a little while.
Okay, it's a lot of money, but it can very quickly get lost. We're talking about people here, ladies and gentlemen. Please, please dig into it. Go back in the archives when it was profitable. Talk to some patients, the recipients of it. Think in terms of patient care and not bottom line statistics. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Other wishes to speak at this time? No one else? I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Richardson, there, second to that motion, second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? The public hearing is now closed, and as Dr. Hill said, there is no action by this board at this time, and we will hear back from the staff after they get through reviewing the proposals that we have in hand, and from our attorney when he gets through reviewing the process. Anything else need to be said, Mr. Durham?
I think you've done a good job.
Okay. All right. At this time, we are now on item number 6, which is a public utility water rate change recommendation to be presented by our county engineer and utility director, Mr. Mike Colson. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me come talk to you about this. Last time we met, we talked about, I had given you quite a few worksheets and different rates and different scenarios to consider with regard to a potential change for water rates in the county in order to be able to cover our expenses in the water utility fund. As far as I've got, there was some there was a request for me to make a recommendation at the next meeting so that we could discuss and have a recommendation for what we've got. I hope all of you have had a chance to review some of that information, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have had in before that. But I've got a recommendation, as you see before you in the packet, and what it is we would like to increase our base rate from the $20 currently that is per month to a $30 per month fee for the typical residential water rate. That brings us in line with the counties that are around us and brings us to a level that will allow us to bring in adequate funding to be able to support the system as it stands. And also, we would like to consider a tier compression, which is a fancy way of saying we would like to break the units of gallons that we sell water in. Currently, we have a tier for one price for the first 5,000 gallons that you use per 1,000 gallons. We would like to change that to a per 3,000 gallon tier, because that is our average monthly use is about 3,000 gallons across the board for everyone, all of our customers. In general, our residential customers in general, not the commercial and the industrial. And so 3,000 gallons was just the natural break point to set the tiers at, and so we'll have 5 new tiers that would cover up to 15,000 gallons. One price for 1 to 3,000 gallons, from 3,001 to 6,000, from 6,001 to 9,000. And we would also like to request that we are able to increase the amount per 1,000 gallons by $1 for each tier. And with this new tier set up, there would be 2 new tiers, and we've established price rates per 1,000 gallons for these last 2 tiers that are in line with the other tiers below them. We barely ever have anyone that hits the tier 4, tier 5 level, and very rarely have anybody in the tier 2, tier 3 level unless there's something going on like a leak that we go out and do rereads and adjustments for anyway. So we feel like this Tier 1 will allow us to gather it, but for those that may use 5 to 10,000 gallons a month, it offers a little bit more of an incentive for them to conserve water and be a little bit more thrifty with their water consumption. So that, we feel like with these adjustments, it will give us a long-term strategy for helping us to stand the water system up and have us less of a burden on a fund balance at the end of the year, which is what we're currently facing with the current structure as it is. So if anybody's got any questions, this is what you see before you.
All right, any questions from Mr. Colson from board members at this time?
Yes, sir.
Mike, in previous discussions and looking at information, I know you had looked at a base fee of either 25 or 30. Did the simple fact that it would take 30 to sustain the system for whatever period of time you looked at, or what was the reasoning behind the 25, 30 versus the 25?
When the numbers are all worked out, we felt like we would be coming back to you again with another change for $5 more monthly fee.
So that would have come up reasonably soon?
Yes, sir, within a year or two,
Okay.
depending on usage and where we are with things.
Okay, so if I'm have a base fee of 30 and I use 3,000 gallons per month, then my bill is $48?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm good.
Other questions from board members? Mike, what are we doing with the availability fee? It stays at $20?
It stays at $20, and I'm still investigating
Sure.
what our surrounding communities are doing about the sunsetting of the system. But no, it is unchanged and is under review, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay.
Trying to find out some avenues there that we can express.
I know you're still looking into that. Did our original base fee include some amount of water?
It used to several years back, and I
We've
think,
already moved beyond that.
yes, sir. Currently, it does not, and I don't believe it has included any base water for a few years now, but I can't speak for 5 years back, but I think 5 years ago it may have, but it does not anymore.
I know what
It
you're
included
talking
the
about.
first 1,000 gallons of water that you got.
About 3 years.
And are we doing anything to the few sewer customers we have?
I have not looked at those rates because we have so few that it would not make a large impact. Water is our large utility that I need to make sure is not causing too much of a burden.
Okay. I'm thinking if it's okay with you, and I'll refer this to Mr. Lamb, that we would do a courtesy approval of this and then incorporate it into our fee schedule for our next budget. Is that where we're headed, or what did y'all have in mind?
Yes, sir.
That's what we would recommend, that we will incorporate it in the budget ordinance.
Okay, since we always incorporate all the fees during budget time anyway. Any other questions? Ms. Barnes, you had a puzzled
No.
look. Did I confuse you with that statement?
No, that's fine. No.
Okay, instead of putting them in effect at this point in time, they would go in effect with our new budget July the 1st. I would just ask, is everybody okay with what he's presented here today? All right, rather than actually approve it, then I think we'll just approve it in our budget ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Rather than having to. I appreciate it. I believe, the next item on the agenda, is item number 7, courthouse change order. You want to take care of that while you're up here, sir?
Yes, sir. What you have before you, our typical change order fee limit for the county manager to sign currently right now is $25,000. What you see before you are some end of project. We are getting very close to the expansion. I know we're not quite done with the whole project, but we're at the end of the change orders for the proposed building, the expansion of the building. So these are several change orders that have been requested along the way that have just been lumped into one large change order. And I'm not sure what listing you got, but I can tell you what these were exactly. A transfer duct at the first floor, adding a wall at stair 2 landing that was an exposed area that needed to be boxed in. Provide ceilings in a utility space, that's just from different RFIs and requests. Add an electrical for plumbing fixtures. add circuits for control panels, and add electrical circuits per RFI 132. These are various fixes and changes within the design of the project that were, well, we needed an extra panel here, we needed those sorts of things. And the total of them just comes up to this $31,000 number that is before you, that was above the typical limit. We have had a few, this is number 5 that we are approving. I believe this may be the first one that I've come in front of you for.
It is.
For change orders, but the other 4 have all been below the limit of, that the county manager could approve. And this is just the one bundled into one that just came over the $25,000 limit.
That would get us to a total of about $72,000 in change orders. Are we still well within our contingency?
Yes, sir, and we're well within because a lot of allowances are offsetting these, and I've got a report that I can provide to you from the architect that shows what offsets they've applied that to for different allowances. So we've only had one amending change order that changed the contract price of the entire project, and it was adds for additional work to be put in, so they were not allowances that could absorb them. Some of these are absorbed by line item allowances that we won't touch, say for instance, a rock category or things like that, so.
And you did have a contingency built into the contract?
Yes, sir.
So we are
Yes, sir.
still within?
We are well within it, even with this number. I think we just checked a while back, and we have closer to $100,000 left in contingency, even with these considered change orders.
Any questions for Mr. Olson from board members?
So your net change orders are about 72,000?
That's from the beginning of the job till today, yes, sir. There's about 40,000 that were approved beforehand in 5,000 here, 8,000 there. Things for like the underground storage tank they found early on in the project, some of those sorts of things.
Okay, other questions? Pleasure of the board.
Move for approval.
Move for approval, motion by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Any question on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Olson. Lisa, keep going, or
Where are we?
we're on item 8. If we can finish 2 more things
That
right
works.
quick, then take a break if that's okay.
That work?
All right, item number 8, which is Nash County Human Resource Policy Manual Recommendation Changes. Stacy, who is going to present that, you or Anson?
Both of them.
Both, okay. Please come forward. Just before that.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Since March of 17, the Policy Committee has been working on new policies and policy updates that were recommended at our 2017 Department Head Retreat. Over the last year, additional recommendations have been made for changes in policy, and the committee has addressed those as well. You should have a packet in front of you that looks like this.
You did.
And if you open it up, you'll see that there's a table of contents on the inside. And the first grouping is a list of new policies that are being proposed. And then you'll also find some adjustments that have been made to some of our existing policies. Today, you're being presented with this packet, and most of these are new policies. Just like I said, you'll also find some items of what we consider to be major changes or significant changes to policies. The recommendation today is that we have the board set a date for a work session for policy. As you can see, this is not something that we would go through in a regular commissioners meeting. But I wanted to give those to you up front and give you a couple of weeks to have time to look through them. And then when we meet for a work session, we can have the policy committee members there and go through in some detail.
All right, I envision 2 ways we can do this. As she just said, we can schedule a work session if the board wishes to participate in a committee of the whole, or if you wish to, I can appoint a 3-person committee to work with this committee, work through it and get to a recommendation of the board. What's the pleasure of the board? Did I make myself clear what I see our two options are?
I think you should appoint a committee, and they would work with them and come back to the board. I think that's a good idea.
I'm just thinking that, anything that might come from committee might not give me a full view of what the policy consists of, and I'm almost leaning to a total board review of the committees. That I just believe I would get more information that would help me if I get it directly from something like that, but I'll go with whatever the majority wishes to do.
Sound like if the board chooses to do it in a committee fashion, you just volunteered to serve on a committee.
Well, I'm just saying there are 6 other members that, may feel the same way.
I do need to hear from each board member. What do y'all prefer to do? Ms. Wells said she was fine with doing it in committee. Mr. Outlaw suggested maybe the whole board work on it. Ms. Barnes, your pleasure.
So what did we do last time? Didn't we all kind of
We
chime
did.
in?
We all
We
did
did.
chime in last time.
Yeah. That's kind of what I prefer.
Okay, Mr. Cone?
If they worked last time, I'll do it
And I
again.
think you said.
Yeah.
All right, what I would do is ask the clerk, rather than us decide that date, to work with the board and come up with a date. Do we have any time-sensitive matters on this?
I would like to do it sometime in the first 2 weeks of June, so that we can hopefully bring some final recommendations to you in the second meeting in June, to have these policies implemented the 1st of July. If that doesn't work out, we can always do that the first meeting in July, and then implement it from that point forward.
I think I would know the answer to the question, but is there any cost associated with any of these changes on behalf of the county?
There are a couple of them that, probably not even a couple. There's one that involves tuition reimbursement. That, the way that would be set up would be, if you decided to do that, then there would just be a lump sum there, and when it runs out, and the employee has the opportunity the following year to apply. So we don't have anything on here that is just kind of out there, and we have no idea how much money we would put into it.
And where I'm going, Mr. Lamb, of course, is there anything in our budget approval process that we needed to get this ahead of, or is it something we can handle outside?
We can handle this outside.
Outside, okay, well, that's important then, okay. All right, if the clerk would just work with us and get that date set up, we greatly appreciate it.
Okay,
Can I ask you one other question?
yes.
And just glancing at this, what does the yellow sections, what do they mean? Are they ads, or?
I wrote you some notes in red. What page are you on?
I'm just on a page that's got a lot of yellow on it.
We have red, black, and yellow.
Right.
Is it, so there's a legend in here that explains that?
Well, yeah, the red writing is telling you what the highlighted
Where's the
area.
legend at?
Pardon me?
Is there a legend in here that that tells you what?
The writing that's in red should tell you what is being highlighted.
So is there a legend in here, or you want me to write this down? Can you provide with us what the red, yellow, and any color designation means? In other words, when I go over to page 3 and I see those living in the same household, are you adding that or are you taking it out?
So up in the red, this policy was created by removing information from our sick leave policy. All of
I got
this.
you. Okay, so it explains it in the red.
It does.
I got you. I'm good.
Okay,
And I still have some blue and yellow left.
pardon me?
We also have some blue text and some yellow text. Why don't you just,
You see blue?
I do see some blue.
Just on page 48.
I don't know where, but I flumbed through there, I saw some blue. Or it may be me.
Email
I do see a
address.
lot of yellow.
Yeah, I just want to be prepared
Oh,
to
the web
discuss it when we get
addresses.
to
Yeah,
that
but,
point.
yeah, those come out in blue, web addresses and email addresses.
Okay, I didn't notice what it was, okay. So the yellow is what? The yellow.
So like for instance, the example that we were using on page 3,
Okay,
that red statement that's up at the top will explain to you what's being highlighted.
okay. I haven't looked at, I think I can figure it out. Everybody okay?
You know where I'm going.
Yes, so when we have the work session, actually, probably a good week before the work session, I would like to provide all of you who want to get your hands on it, a full copy of the redlined manual that we have. So the one that I've been working on for over a year, I can print it off, and it will show you everything that I did. When I deleted stuff, it'll show you what was deleted. When I added stuff, it will show you what was added. Every time I fixed a space or a period or anything like that, it shows you everything. So before we meet for that work session, I'd like to provide you all with a full copy of that kind of detail so that
And you will email us that.
I don't know if it
rather get a
will
hard
come
copy
through.
from you.
It's in a format where I'm tracking my changes.
We can print it out.
Oh, yes.
Whatever's best.
Yeah.
The answer's yes.
So, one more question. Then, that's good what you just said, if we got that from you, a hard copy of that, because if you go over to like page 25, it says, reviewed and adjustments were made throughout. Key adjustments are highlighted. So what you will give us in what you just said will actually identify those adjustments, and we won't.
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, and
That'll
actually,
help.
that particular one, that longevity pay, there's a lot of, there was a lot of moving around, so I definitely want you to see that marked-through version.
That'll help.
Is there anyone that doesn't wish to get a hard copy of the marked-through version? I'll just say,
Will it come through electronically, do you think?
I know I can print it, so I can scan it. I know I can give it,
I was-
send it as a PDF for sure.
Well, that would be fine for me.
Yeah,
That'll be fine.
yeah,
Well, I prefer the printed hard copy.
absolutely.
Dan,
Print.
Ms. Wells?
I think you're job pulling it up.
Sound like we want 2 emails and the rest of them printed. Ms. Barnes himself will take it
Okay,
electronically. Would
Okay.
suit me better, I think.
sounds good.
And I'll,
Dave.
yes, ma'am.
I would suggest must be a field one,
Sure,
training.
printed,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I'm going to back up to the beginning of the meeting. 2 things I did not do. I first of all, did not make a statement that Mr. Belfield did have an excused absence. I understand he is out of town and possibly out of state, and he told us a long time ago that he wouldn't be here this morning or this afternoon. And then I needed to do one addition to the agenda, which I was going to add as item number 8A, and it is simply a resolution authorizing involuntary commitment transport services within Nash County Health Care System. And I'm going to ask Mr. Lamb if he'll explain it to us. I think I understand it, but if you or whoever you wish to explain it.
Mr. Chief Medina.
Deputy.
Chief Deputy Medina.
Well, let the one that has to run to the hospital until we do this explain.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I met with the UNC Chief Operating Officer and their Chief of Police. Apparently, they had a training scenario about a week ago, and they had some individuals from UNC government in the training.
Right.
And they were able to identify a method that the hospital's been doing for 25 years that was actually against their policy. So they presented this resolution to see if, basically what it is if we do it the way the general statute reads, a deputy would have to come off the street, go to the hospital, and sign for a transportation order taking them from the emergency room to Coastal Plains.
Located on the same campus.
Same property, same campus. So to alleviate that, they wanted to present this resolution to alleviate the sheriff's office having to come out there and just sign for transportation occurring within their facility.
Chief, it's the actual hospital police that is making that transport?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions on what he's asking for? As I understand, if we adopt this resolution, it has to be adopted by the Board of County Commissioners, and then they wouldn't have to do that signature. Any questions? I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Moved.
Moved by Ms. Richardson, second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. At this time, I'll call for about a 8.5-minute recess, if we could. Call us back to order, and we're now on agenda item number 9, and it is a fiscal year 2019 budget presentation by our manager, Z. Lamb. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and County Commissioners. Before you, you have the budget presentation. You'll see not only my message, which I will go through in just a second, but also individual departments and categories and functions of county government outlined. I urge you to look at those over the next couple of weeks before the public hearing, and let me know if you have any questions. But to get back to the message, this budget is presented according to North Carolina law. It is subject to a public hearing, which we recommend to be the 4th of June, and also subject to the Board of Commissioners revisions, amendments, and subsequent approval prior to July 1. It is balanced. This budget is balanced, which is required by North Carolina law for local governments. The budget also provides the resources necessary to ensure the delivery of governmental services in a fiscally responsible manner. The budget is one of the best tools to demonstrate the board's priorities for the future of Nash County. This budget is a continuation of the fiscally, financially sound, and fiscally conservative practices Nash County government has established and embraced. This budget contains the expenditures and revenues for all county funds, though this message will focus primarily on the general fund, which is our largest fund and includes all governmental activities supported by local taxes. The proposed budget is proposed to be at $93,276,046, which is 3.29% above the current year original budget. The couple years before that, we had a flat budget with very little increase because of the revaluation situation we were in. We've gotten past that now, and this budget attempts to provide services and resources that have not been available in recent years. Very importantly, this is the 9th consecutive year that the tax rate has remained at 67 cents. Last year's budget was at 67, and the revenue neutral figure was around 69. So in effect, there was a slight decrease in the budget last year, but we've had the same tax rate for 9 years as proposed. The tax rate, as recommended, is able to remain consistent without reducing services, thanks to a moderate tax base increase of around 1.4%. Increases in sales tax collections and an increase in anticipated investment earnings. We were making less than 0.5% on county fund balances. Those interest rates have now gone to the 1.5% to 2% category, so we anticipate collecting more in investment earnings. Our fund balance as of June 30th, 2017 was 33.35%, which is about 4 months of a fund balance. There is no increase in general fund taxes or fees. We have discussed previously the shortfall we're experiencing in the water system, and that will be addressed in the budget ordinance. The way we went about doing the budget is county administration received budget requests, revenue estimates, and other financial information from various officials, officers, department heads, and agencies of Nash County. The proposed budget is based on staff information and information provided by and input from the county commissioners. Each department or agency presented an original budget request to the finance office. Upon receipt, I met along with the finance director and the assistant county manager with each department head to come up with a budget to present to y'all, to the county commissioners at our budget work sessions. Y'all have reviewed the budget preliminarily, and in the case of special appropriations requested by outside agencies and nonprofit organizations, including the school system and the community college, these appropriations, as recommended, reflect the result of the budget work sessions involving the Board of Commissioners. Highlights of the budget for next year. We anticipate an increase in ad valorem taxes of $654,000, about a 1.37% increase, which can be attributed to increased tax base, new construction, and increases in personal property. This year, we experienced a very good increase in sales tax collections, about 6%. We are going to use that figure for next year's budget rather than budgeting an additional amount, factoring in future growth. We feel like 6% is a good figure, and if we stay the same, our budget is anticipating that we do the same as this year. I anticipate it will be better. As I said before, investment earnings are going to increase $425,000 to over $600,000. The state's requiring local governments to increase our share for the retirement system for county employees and law enforcement, and that's going to cost us right at $100,000. Something very important in this year's budget, which I know I've heard a lot of very appreciative county employees, is a cost of living adjustment that the commissioners have agreed preliminarily to a 3% COLA for all full-time and permanent part-time employees. The cost of that 3% is approximately $1,050,000. We have several new positions within this budget. They include 5 for Department of Social Services, 1 for the Health Department, 4 for the Sheriff's Office, 1 for the Tax Office, 1 for Facility Maintenance, 3 in the Senior Services Program, and 1 for Parks and Rec. The next paragraph there will explain how each of these positions have come about. The facility maintenance position was a frozen position. We will hire a maintenance technician. In senior services, we had a frozen position also, and we're going to fill that. A new position in the health department is a reclassification of an existing position to create a deputy health director position. I believe the net cost of that change is around $25,000. 4 new positions in the sheriff's office consist of 3 new deputies for court security because of the new courthouse expansion project, and 1 previously grant-funded position that we are bringing into the general fund. The tax office position is to fund an additional real property appraiser. The Department of Social Services has 5 new positions to meet state mandates. 1 of the social worker positions is fully grant funded, and the remaining 4 are funded at approximately 50 to 75% from state and federal funds. So the net cost of those 5 positions to the county is $56,000. We are going to have 2 new positions beginning November 2018 with the opening of the new Southern Nash Senior Center. And a final new position will be created in January of 2019, provided that the maintenance position is needed for the new, and that the new Miracle Park at Coopers is completed. You can see that 3 of these positions are partially funded this year. The projected additional funding for these new positions is approximately $645,000. We are anticipating health insurance benefits to increase by $314,000. We really don't know, now that we're in the state system, they increase in January each year, so we're just projecting about a 5% increase, and that's what we're budgeting. It may be less, hopefully not more, than 5%. Human Services account for a net decrease in local funding. Local funding for the Department of Social Services will be $123,000 more next year than in the current budget due to the new positions, increased retiree health insurance premiums, COLA increases, and NC Fast technology requirements for child welfare implementation. This increase is offset by the local health department funding decrease of $205,000 due primarily to freezing of several home health positions and the ability to use more restricted health reserves. We are anticipating fuel for all county agencies to be approximately $2.55 per gallon. We get our taxes back on each gallon of $56, 56 cents, so we are budgeting $1.99 or $2 per gallon for all departments. That's an increase of $121,000. If prices go down, then there'll be more money left over or more money for fuel if they go over their anticipated miles. We use the current year and the prior year's miles for each department to estimate the fuel needs. In economic development, there's an increase of approximately $90,000 over the current year due to current incentive agreements with Hospira Pfizer and CFI, Carolina Innovative Food Ingredients, and a full-year funding for the Retail Development Recruiter to promote retail business development throughout Nash County. Rocky Mount Wilson Airport funding is increasing by $127,000 for matching funds for fuel farm mitigation, a self-service fuel farm, and runway rehabilitation project. The increase of $180,000 for Nash Rocky Mount schools current expense is included in this recommended budget to maintain the 10% teacher supplement, anticipating that the state will provide a 3% increase to teachers. An increase of $104,000 for Nash Community College current expense is included for a new maintenance position and to cover increasing benefit costs, and an additional $125,000 for capital outlay is included to assist in the cost of an emergency alert system for campus safety and equipment requests. There is a net increase of approximately $165,000 in debt service. This is due primarily to the new installment financing for the Middlesex Shell building. It is offset slightly with the payoff of the 2015 ambulance purchase that we paid off in the current year. This year's budget has Capital expenditures of $318,000 more than we originally budgeted last year. We're going from about 1.4 million to about 1.7. And that includes the new CAD system that will be used for the public safety departments, the sheriff's department, and the jail and emergency communications. County revenues are anticipated to increase by about $1 million. I'm sorry, $2 million, due primarily to increased property tax revenue, due to the increase in property tax base, sales tax growth, and investment earnings. You can see that according to our last audit, our tax collection rate was 98.57. The chart shows it's the progression that we've made over the last 4 or 5 years. We are already, as of Friday, at 98.43 in the current year. So we anticipate we will again go beyond what we did last year, and I'm hoping for about a 98.7% collection rate. For the purposes of this budget, we are estimating a collection rate of 97.5%. That's the same we used this year and last year and for several years now. We anticipate collecting at about 1% more than that, which is the equivalent of about $470,000. I can tell you in this year's budget, our collections are right at $1 million more for property than we had anticipated. We had a new year, a new revow, and we had some growth, so it came out very well for us. We are also working hard to keep that tax collection rate high, and we are also trying to collect prior year delinquent taxes. The next chart you see shows what the 10-year balance. As y'all know, when people don't pay their taxes, you can enforce collection for up to 10 years. You can collect it after 10 years, but you can't enforce collection except for 10 years. For the last 4 or 5 years, we've been able to reduce that partially because of the new vehicle tax system, but also because of increased collections by the tax office. You can see how we estimate our tax base and our rate. The tax administrator brings us information as to what he anticipates next year's tax base to be. Right now, that's around $7,330,000. So that means for every 100% collection, each penny will produce $733,000. Without going through all those breakdowns here, you can see that at 97.5%, we anticipate collecting, let me see here, $48,593,000. That represents 54.6% of our general fund revenues. Some counties, you rarely see less than 40% of general fund revenues being ad valorem taxes. It's been creeping up throughout the state, and right now we're at 54%. Sales tax is also anticipated to increase based on this year's collections. We'll be collecting the state and federal funds for the Social Service Department and the Health Department. We're anticipating $4.69 million from sales and services, including EMS collections. We also anticipate collecting 930 and spending 936,000 in lottery funds, permits and fees, which includes building permits, registered deeds fees, sheriff's office fees, and parks and recreation participation fees of slightly over $1 million. We're anticipating 650 from investment earnings, which I said before is quite an increase from the past few years. Fund balance appropriated. The total fund balance appropriated to balance this budget is $4.3 million. That's an increase from last year. The health reserves have increased that we can appropriate, and the county capital, as I said before, has increased to $1.75 million. This year, as our balancing factor, we are using to balance the budget, we're going to use $2.3 million in fund balance appropriated for the general fund. Now, we've gone from originally 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, we were doing $2.8 million for the balancing factor. Then we went down to 1.8 because of revow and just to be safe. And so we're proposing to go right now halfway in between. Now, I'm very confident that we will not need that 2.3 million because revenues will be higher than we're anticipating and expenditures will be less than budgeted. So as in past years, although we're budgeting from fund balance, we may or may not have to tap into that fund balance appropriated. But I feel very confident that the 2.3 million on top of the capital funding, one-time capital funding is sustainable, and our budget, our fund balance can handle it. General fund expenditures overview. General government's about 10% of the budget. Public safety is where we've seen the largest increase in funding this year, about 8.6%. Transportation is for the RPO and the Rocky Mount Wilson Airport. Economic and fiscal development, we've got some increases there. Human services, health department, we've actually got a decrease in that budget. DSS, that's slightly up, but together, as I said before, it's a net negative, less money being spent. Education, we've discussed that. We're going to give the Board of Education $20,500,000 for current expense and $1,400,000 for capital for the school system. And also $2.2 million for current expense and $400,000 for the community college next year. We give the school system their current expense monthly, 1/12 each month on the first day of the month, and we give the community college their money quarterly, the first month of each quarter. You can see debt service is detailed there. As I said before, the Middlesex Shell Building is the new item, and the debt that fell off is the FY15 ambulance lease purchase debt. Debt service for the Nash Rocky Mount School System for next year will be $2.78 million. In addition, we'll use lottery funds in the amount of $936,000 for Rocky Mount High School debt. And so The remaining restricted sales tax of $1.7 million will be used for funding capital outlay for Nash Rocky Mount schools. Any excess funds will be restricted for future Nash Rocky Mount school capital needs. We've got some debt service for the community college in the amount of $818,591 for next year. That includes $712,000 for the continuing education and public facilities building and $105,000 for the Science and Technology Center. We have a contingency line item of $25,000 and a revow reserve appropriation of $100,000. Capital spending, as I detailed before, is $1.75 million, and I've detailed in the message the different things that that money is going towards. We also have some other funds. The utility fund, as y'all discussed already, I mentioned in the message that we are recommending a 10% increase in the base fee. Fire districts, there are 18 fire districts in the county. Only one is asking for an increase, and that's increase from 9 cents to 10 cents, and that's for the Tar River Spring Hope District. Not earlier than 10 days after today, and no later than July 1, the Nash County Board of Commissioners must hold a public hearing and thereafter adopt a budget ordinance making appropriations, estimating revenues, and levying taxes for the coming year. County staff recommends the commissioners hold the public hearing on June 4th. A copy of the budget has been filed with the clerk to the board and is available for public inspection in the manager's office as well as on the county website. A notice of public hearing will be published in the Rocky Mount Telegram, the Nashville Graphic, and the Spring Hope Enterprise. The same published statement will also give notice of the time and place of the public hearing during which any person may wish to comment on the budget may appear before the Board of Commissioners. This budget represents our best estimate of revenues and expenditures during the coming year. As with any budget, during the course of the coming year, budget adjustments may be necessary. Except for minor exceptions set forth in the budget ordinance, the Nash County Board of Commissioners must approve any such budget adjustments which increase or decrease a department's total expenditures during the course of the fiscal year. I urge the commissioners to consider carefully this budget and study it between now and the public hearing. If there are any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. On behalf of your county staff, we look forward to working with the commissioners during the coming year to provide the best services possible at the most reasonable cost to the taxpayers of Nash County. At this time, I'd like to thank the commissioners for your hard work during these budget sessions. It's been a very good budget year. The process has worked well. Staff did a great job, not only finance and the manager staff, but also the individual department heads. All worked hard to present a budget to us that that we can all live with. So, and I would make one last comment about the COLA. That is very much appreciated. I will say, though, that we have some departments in the county, social services, the jail, environmental health, and some other departments that we're seeing a lot of attrition because of Wake County primarily, but the 3% will at least be a first step towards being competitive in the market. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer your questions at this time.
Mr. Lamb, I've got several, but prior to me asking mine, I'd ask any board member if they've got any questions at this time.
Just a clarification on the education 3%, the 180,000 for supplements. In the event that the state salary increases from 3% to say 6%, then we would increase accordingly.
That's the intention, according to the last meeting that we had. That's the intention of the board.
One other question, on miles and gas costs, are we really comfortable with $2.55 a gallon? And have you considered the additional mileage for the transports that have been increasing dramatically?
We base our mileage on history and prior years, including the current year. So we're very comfortable with that. I prefer to underestimate gasoline rather than overestimate it, because if we underestimate it, we can always find the money, whereas if you overestimate it, that money seems to be transferred to other line items. So this is a tight way of budgeting for gasoline. But it is what it is. So whatever the cost of gasoline is, we have to provide those funds.
Well, we just did a budget amendment last month, I think,
Right.
for this year, to
Pretty
put more money in the gas, pretty significant. Last month and the month before one. So that's what you're saying.
It wasn't that much for gas, was it? That was for salaries.
Well, they had a gas line item in there. Yeah, something, I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
what it was.
It was a small increase, yeah.
Okay. Other questions, Mr. Outlaw, at this time? Other board members? Mr. Lamb, under the general fund, the positions, it's a total of 16, but certainly not anywhere near 16 costs. Did anybody calculate the FTEs that go along with these 16 positions? With full-time equivalents, do we know what that is? That is county cost.
I'm not sure your question.
We have 16 positions that is under the line item for new positions.
Right,
Quite a few of them are partly funded somewhere else.
right.
Some of them are partly funded for a portion of the year. I normally like to see it, what the full-time equivalent is for the whole year for county cost only.
Understood, understood.
And I don't have to have that
Yeah,
today.
we'll get that to you.
If you could possibly get that. Just a comment under the economic development for the benefit of the board, the new position that we put there, the county pays half of it, and TDA refunded half of it last week at our budget meeting. So I guess we've got that understood. Well, you were there, so you know we did that. Okay, gotcha. Rocky Mount Wilson Airport is a rather large increase in capital. Do we know that our funding partners are all gonna go into that? Because I'm gonna buy into that, because it seems as if I read that one of them was not, but I read so much I may not have. Are we gonna look at this to make sure the other 5 partners funded also?
It anticipates that the other partners, all 5 partners, contribute. We will check into that
Okay.
and make sure that
I think you
occurs.
got one in their budget message. It was recommended by the manager not to do it, but you just verify that if you would. In what case, what would happen there?
I'd bring it back to the board and ask what y'all want us to do.
All right. The only other thing, Mr. Lamb, I know I mentioned to you several weeks ago, and it may not be time to do it yet, but to have the board consider doing something like we did for early college for the new elementary school in the northern Nash area, to possibly create a capital reserve fund and put some funds in that in our new budget coming up, to have for seed money what may come up, whether it be an architect, whether it be land purchase or whatever it may be. Is it too late to consider that? Because I'm real interested in doing that, simply to it seemed to help the school board understand on the early college to keep them energized, since we had put money aside. That's you playing chopsticks over here, by the way. But do you have a problem with that? And it would be a capital reserve fund, which would still, as I learned in our recent class that Donna and I went to, would not affect what our fund balance looked like.
Right. What we've been doing in recent years for special capital projects like that is in June, seeing where our revenues are and how much we're going to have over what we anticipated minus the fund balance appropriated, and then make recommendations to. Okay. So that is something we would want to do at the second meeting in June.
Okay, so you will bring that back to us at a later date. Any questions on my thought there from board members? Okay. All right, and the last thing, Z, you mentioned the several departments we were losing some employees on, that you hope that the 3% COLA would help that some, and certainly it will help some. You mentioned Wake County, which I think we all know that Nash County is not in a position to compete with Wake County, and won't be, regardless of what positions we're talking about, whether it be school teachers or whatever. It's a battle that we're gonna always have. It's real close. In some cases, it's a 15-minute ride for some of our potential employees to get into Wake County now. But I certainly understand that we invest a lot of money getting a employee to where they are productive, regardless of whether it's county government, private enterprise, or whatever, and we hate to lose good employees, which for the most part, we got excellent employees. And I don't really know how to quite phrase what I want to ask, but we have agreed to do the 3% this year. Is it ever done where a board of commissioners looks at a future year to go ahead and certainly can't spend money in the future year, but to somewhat make it a commitment to employees to also do a 3%, maybe another time, and possibly another time, that gets us up close to a 10% raise in a 3-year period? Have you ever heard of such before?
Yeah, you can have a 3-year plan. It's just a plan until you actually pass that next budget and the following budget. But it can be a commitment to the employees that over the next 3 years, unless we have a catastrophic recession, that we plan to increase the COLA over a 2, 3, 4-year period.
Well, listening to your revenue increases for this year, as you stated, you got in 3 categories, $1,914,000 worth of increases. Ad valorem tax $655, sales tax $834, and then the improvement in the interest picture for the county $425. That's almost $2 million. The 3% you stated was $1,050,000, including benefits for the employee base. So
that's correct.
Is there any interest on the board to have a direction for the staff to go ahead and plan to do a future COLA for the employees? And of course, I'm not here to set the percentage. Somebody else may have a different idea. I don't know. But certainly, we don't want to lose the good employees we've got. And if they could see 10% over a 3-year period, maybe it'll save. If it saves one, it's one we save, but hopefully it saves more than one. But anybody have a real issue with
I think
that?
that's a move in the right direction.
What'd you say, Ms. Wells? I'm sorry, Ms. Wells, I didn't hear what you
A
said.
move in the right direction. We need to make our staff know we appreciate them and they got something to look forward to, instead of somebody coming along offering them 5 cents and they say, wait a minute, I'm gonna get 5 cents. I stay with Nash County and I'm happy, so why would I move?
Okay. Ms. Lamb, what do you think about that? Just the concept of it. Have you ever done it where you've been before? Because this board's not done it in my period of time.
I haven't. I've done it with school funding deals to agree for future years, which worked out
Probably
great.
did that stay out of court though, but go ahead.
No, not always, not here, in other counties too. But yeah, I think that would be a great gesture to our county employees. I mean, we are falling a little behind right now, and while the 3% will help, those other counties are going to probably give 2 or 3% this year too. So if we could have a multi-year commitment from this board, recognizing that it's not legally binding, I think that would be a great show of appreciation for our county employees.
Well, I'd say if we sit here and do that, it's gonna be pretty legally binding, because I'll see a number of employees sitting out there, but that's all right too. Mr. Outlaw, did you have a thought or question?
Well, really, I'm just a little bit stunned
Uh-oh.
that a suggestion such as that would come to the floor, because it is a great suggestion.
But
But
what?
if you look at surrounding counties and exclude Wake, I know everybody on this board is concerned about hiring the best and retaining the best. And I know we're losing people. I just had an event Saturday, and I spoke to some of our county employees, and we talked a little bit about people going to Wilson County and various places for money. And it's not all for money, but most of it's for money. So if you look at surrounding counties, again excluding Wake, but I would like to think at some point we could challenge Wake as best we can. If we go 3% for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, then chances are we're just going to maintain status quo. So since you opened the discussion, Mr. Chairman, I just think if we really want to make an impact on our employees and retention and recruitment, that I would ask this board to consider a significant change by going 5% this year and 5% again next year, which would be 10% in 2 years, and they would realize that 10% really in 13 or 14 months, and possibly at the start of the second year, maybe we could have HR or somebody do an internal study of our salaries to see at that point where we stand in relation to other counties. So that would just be my thinking on that particular subject.
You make me get my calculator out, but give me just one
I
second.
think from what I've heard today, the revenue stream would probably support that, and I just think it would do wonderful things with our employees to show them that we do appreciate them, and we don't want to lose them.
According to my calculator, it cost us about $350,000 per percentage. So if we go from 3 to 5, I believe we're talking about another $700,000.
I hadn't done the math.
And I'm agreeing with Mr. Outlaw. I heard somebody from the Citizens Academy tell me today that the biggest impression he had of the whole thing was the dedication of the staff. And when I hear that the only county that we don't run into competition with salaries is Edgecombe, that don't say a lot for where we are, in my opinion. So I'm in total agreement with Mr. Outlaw. I think we need to go ahead and do it now. 5% over 2 years, to me, is a good figure.
That would be 10% over 2 years.
Absolutely.
I have no problem with that.
Well, you don't think you had no problem with that?
I have no problem. I just think we need to look after our employees. We've got good employees, we've got a good sheriff's department, we've got a good staff, and everywhere you go and you talk to someone, they talk about Nash County. And we just need to show, if we can afford it, and maybe we can, we need to take care of our employees.
Mr. Lamb, was where Mr. Outlaw was talking about, that extra money comes what you do is increase the allotment from the fund balance. You don't have no other way to do it,
The
correct?
balancing factor of 2.3 could increase to 3.0, which is only 200,000 more than my first 2 years here. We were appropriating 2.8 and not even touching it. So, yeah, we would change the fund balance appropriated balancing factor from 2.3 million to 3 million.
I would just state that from what I've heard, that doing that would not lead to a tax increase.
That's correct.
Okay.
So you're guaranteeing, if it goes to 3 million, you're still not gonna spend any of it. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not guaranteeing that. Because that margin is getting narrower and narrower, and I'm not sure we're not gonna spend some of our fund balance appropriated this year, but we do have a very healthy fund balance. It's a necessary fund balance. Some people don't seem to understand
Don't
that.
appreciate it.
Yeah, but we do have a healthy fund balance, and if this year we spend $1 million of it, and next year we spend $1 million of it, this county is still financially strong.
Well, of course, understand what we're talking about when you talk about salaries, you're talking about reoccurring expenses, which we
Right.
try our best not to do. Just springing the 5 and 5 on you, give us your thoughts, if you would. I'd like to hear what. how
I
you really feel.
absolutely endorse it, and think it would be a wonderful gesture to our county employees. They
Well,
went,
I begged, I asked why we didn't get a proposal of 5 from you then. I guess you were getting what you thought you could get, maybe, I don't know.
over the last 5 years, we haven't approached 3%. So I thought I was going out on a limb to get 3%, and,
That's a fair answer.
yeah. But, yeah, I think it would do a lot. I know the DSS folks are here. Wake DSS has opened a place in Zebulon, I believe, or Knightdale, or,
It was in
and-
Dublin, I think. I
yeah,
read.
and we've lost several employees to them. That was
I
like,
had one of the employees tell me that.
yeah, $12,000 more
And
to
it
go
wasn't-
there.
It wasn't any of these in the room.
Yeah, so I think a 2-year or 13-month increase like Mr. Outlaw has proposed,
Well, really, you are in effect getting 10% in 13 months. if
That's
you
right.
Think about it, okay.
yeah. July this year, you get 5, July next year, you get 5.
Right, okay. All right.
Yeah, I very much endorse that proposal. And I suspect our department heads would too.
I think it'd be interesting too to see in this 2-year period, how much, if any, we reduce the loss of employees to other counties.
Yeah.
Because you can put a dollar figure on what it would take to replace and train those people.
That's right. And one area, environmental health, is an area that, that's always been a problem ever since I've been in county government, but it's gotten even
It's
worse.
a real problem right this minute.
Yeah.
You got one inspector down there, and
Yeah.
with all these homes that are getting built, and it's a real struggle for our industry, for sure.
We lost one to Pitt County, we lost another one to the private
Private
sector.
enterprise, yeah, to a construction company.
Well, and we've had several retirements happen in the last couple of years, and it's been great that we've been able to promote from within.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I think. So that, I think we definitely need to stay on that track. And just another note, the commissioners oftentimes get lumped into that increase and may get some criticism for that, so I'm just saying I'm not endorsing that for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, we ask you individually, there are several of you that in the past have asked that you not get the COLA, and so we will individually inquire with y'all at a later date, if y'all pass this budget with a COLA.
Ms. Barnes, I think you told me you were fine.
Yes.
Okay. I know you two did. Ms. Richardson, are you okay where Mr. Outlaw speaking of?
Yes, I'm okay with it, but I'm just wondering why we wait so late in our budget session to talk about this increase. I thought we had it about worked out, but you
Well,
know,
I brought it up today simply because
Yeah.
of the employees that I know we've lost in the last little
Oh,
bit.
sure.
And particularly environmental health really concerns
but you know,
me.
I'm always, advocate for increasing or helping our employees because we have some of the best and no doubt about that. So I'm just wondering, are we looking far enough ahead? Are we gonna be okay in the next several years if we don't have a good year or something? You know, I know it's a chance we take anyway we go, but I will never say no to helping our employees. That's just not in me. But I just want to make sure we're looking, being careful to not
Well, it's been a
kinda
long
take a-
time. It's a little more than what I thought we would talk about, which I'm still okay with it, but it's been a long time since we've had $2 million in growth in those three categories alone.
Sure.
And I can't help
That's
but think with what building permits we're issuing and number of inspections we're doing a day,
Sure.
which is averaging somewhere close to 70 most of the time now, that it's gonna continue for a while longer. Interest rate, nobody ever knows what's gonna happen, but they are still pretty darn low, quite frankly, what we are drawing on it, so hopefully it will get better.
Yeah, 10 years ago, we were, counties were getting 6.5% on their money, so. So there, we've got a lot of room to grow there, but unless, Commissioner Richardson, unless we have a real downturn in the economy and, you know, I foresee that we'll be able to sustain this 5% for the next 2 years,
Good.
each of the next 2
So
years.
we can come back and adjust.
It's gonna be hard to do, Ms. Wells.
Sure, that's right.
You can't. when
Can't
you
give and
let
take
the
it back.
Cat out of the bag with employee
We'll
salary,
adjust
you don't come back and adjust it.
Pay.
Do I don't want to be sitting in this seat, if you do, or neither one of the other ones, I don't think.
That's somebody else.
Mr. Chairman, since it sounds like that is a consensus, we will incorporate that in our budget ordinance that will be presented to you after the public hearing. We will incorporate a 5% COLA instead of a 3% COLA.
Well, and I guess you would make the adjustment very quickly, so if somebody from the public does come up and look at the budget, they would see the true number on that.
We can do that.
Okay. All right, any other questions on the budget presentation by our manager at this time?
I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for putting that on the floor. Very much, I appreciate it.
Well, I wish that, well, you're quite welcome, sir. It's right there. All right, if there's no other questions on the budget, we will move into special reports, and Vice Chair Outlaw, I'll turn the meeting over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll start with District 1, Commissioner Richardson. Your report.
Yes, sir, we met on last Tuesday, and we had 2 members to meet with us, and we had 2 visitations, and we ran into a little problem at both, but I think we're gonna make progress with it. So we're working on those issues.
When you say run into a little problem, what does that mean? Is that, you mean at the facilities
Yeah.
or with your board members?
No, at the facilities, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, at the
That's all you need to
facilities,
say.
so
Yeah.
we usually just meet, if we see a concern, we give it to the ombudsman, and they talk to the administrator, and they go back and check on it, make sure it's working out, so.
Right.
And one is about a prescription drug benefits from the, pharmacy that's covered, and they getting that worked out. I think they got it down to about 2, so it's just one of those things that we work on, but we keep check on it.
Right.
So everything was going good.
Is that it, Ms. Richardson? I think you're still looking 1 member for that board, too. And I think we've got a couple of districts that don't have representation, so everybody needs to keep looking for another member to go on that board, I believe.
Yes, sir, because like I said, we have some that is really inactive, and so we are dealing with that. So like I said, this last time we only had 2. And, but we keep working with what we have.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Commissioner Belfield is not with us today, so Commissioner Cone, District 3.
Oh, the Agriculture Advisory Board has not met, and I reported to you last Monday on Health and Human Services, so they haven't met since then either.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Combs. District 4, Commissioner Barnes.
Nash UNC Hospital Board, they were conducting interviews last week for the financial officer and the medical officer positions. And also, staff will bring a recommendation to the board regarding Coastal Plain Hospital at our next meeting in June. And Trillium meets tomorrow.
I just want to say, I think Ken Mullen did an excellent job today. And just to mention this to the group, I was at Nurses Penning at Nash Community College, and Dr. Hayden spoke, and that was one of the most moving presentations she made at that event that I've ever seen. And I wanted to tell her today, but she got gone. But you tell her for me, that was really an excellent presentation.
I've heard that from several places.
It was really good. District 5, in the interest of time on Nash Community College, I've got a handout for you that gives the status of the new buildings, engineering and cosmetology. It tells you when construction will be completed and when they'll be moving out, and we'll have access for Nash to start work on the Building C. I've also got the status of vet tech renovations and additions on here, so I will just, before you get going, I'll give you a copy of this, and I'll give you an update on that. The TAC, RPO TAC, nothing significant to report from that. Broadband, the staff and broadband committee are in the process of evaluating proposals received from providers, and we hope to have something more definitive to report in the next month or so. That would complete my report. District 6, Commissioner Wells.
Okay, the Turning Point Workforce Development Board is actually doing what it's supposed to. It just got through giving out scholarships. STEP has just won a statewide award, and I'll bring more information of that at the next meeting. But I would like to back up on Fred's. The Upper Coastal Plain Council of Government has hired someone to replace Greg Goddard. He's from Georgia, and he's actually in training right now and will take over July the 1st.
Good. Is that it, Ms. Wells?
That's it.
Commissioner Davis, District 7, and after your report, Commissioner Davis, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, Tourism Development Authority did have a budget meeting last Tuesday. We had a significant number of presenters for funds. We did approve our budget for next year. Total funds that we distributed were $655,500. I'll just briefly tell you, the Tar River Orchestra requested $20,000, which was approved. The Elizabeth City State University, which is the Down East Viking Classic, got approved for $40,000, which that was their request. The Nashville Chamber for the Blooming Festival was approved for $17,000. Spring Hope Chamber of Commerce requested $5,000, and that amount was approved. The Nash Arts Council next door here requested $10,000, and that was approved as well. The Rocky Mount Rotary requested a $15,000 grant for Tackle the Tar, which was held this past weekend, very successful again. And all of that money goes to the local 3 colleges for scholarships. That amount was $15,000 was approved. The Dunn Center for Performing Arts, which is all the shows that they have out at the Dunn Center, requested a $10,000, and that was approved. Our only new request, who we had never seen before, was the Rocky Mountain Mills made a request for $5,000 to cover one of their concert series that they are doing out there now, and that was approved. And the Nash Travel and Tourism budget, which is by far the majority of the funding that we do each year, and by statute, it gets 2/3 of the funds that we take in of the 3-cent tax that is governs to Nash County and not to the city of Rocky Mount, which they get the 2 cents. And their approved budget was $533,500. If you have any questions about those, we were able to give each one of the requests some of their money, not all of them got all of the money, to keep it within a conservative budget that we try to adopt each year. The Rocky Mount MPO, actually is meeting as I sit here today. We had to elect a new chairman. I think that was gonna be taken care of, and they had several other things on the agenda. I'll report that at our next meeting. The Whitaker Shell Building is moving along nicely, I think. Middlesex, I say that every time. M stands for Middlesex. Got it. Shell Building is moving along fine. Of course, it has certainly been weather affected, but they do have the majority of the footings in now. The steel has been delivered. There is, of course, no floor in the building, and I would expect they would be erecting the steel package, hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Go Rock has not met again since we met last. It is still progressing along nicely, I think. And the joint school board meetings, I'm not sure, I don't think we've had another meeting since we met last and reported. So that is
I
my
think the next
report.
one's on June the 6th or 7th.
Yeah, that is correct. I talked with Vince and the manager prior to coming in here today, and there's no need for us to have a closed session today unless some board member has an item that I'm not aware of. Seeing none, we will not have a closed session. And any reason, Mr. Lamb, we would need to recess, or am I adjourning to June the 4th?
I don't know of any reason. If we need to, we can do it the 48-hour notice for a special meeting, but I know of none anticipated right now.
Only thing would possibly be the meeting we talked about earlier.
The
to review
work session,
The work session.
policy.
Yeah, you would just do
We'll
Okay,
do
okay.
a work session
All
notice.
right, any other item to bring before the board by a commissioner at this time? Mr. Lamb, do you have anything else?
No, sir.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjournment until June the 4th at our regular scheduled meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Mr. Combs, there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like session? Stand adjourned.